For me, I feel like we should lift each other up and support each other, not tear each other down.
From Mamma Mia Podcasts, I'm Mia Friedman, and you're listening to No Filter, candid conversations that count. And today, it doesn't get much more candid than this. I don't know a lot about tennis. You'll be shocked to hear, but I know that Serena Williams is one of the greatest athletes of all time. So when the opportunity came up to interview her for this podcast, of course I jumped at it. And then 48 hours before we were due to speak, the US Open happened and Serena was all over the news cycle for all the wrong reasons.
Just a year after giving birth, Williams was expected to equal Australian Margaret Court's Grand Slam record. Instead, her usually unshakable composure unravelled.
Her clash with the umpire during her final match against Naomi Osaka dominated international news. Debates raged about sexism and racism and sport and the role of women and umpires, and there are 1,000 think pieces published and 1 million conversations raging online and around dinner tables and in workplaces. And as I watched all this unfold, I waited expectantly for Serena to cancel our interview. And I waited. Even though this was one of the lowest moments of her professional career and an incredibly tough time personally, as some very ugly words and cartoons were broadcast globally, and even though she could be forgiven for wanting to clear her schedule, turn off her phone and hide under her bed so that she could process what happened, that's what I would have done, well, that's just not Serena Williams' style. As the face of a new charity campaign from Berlei that promotes self-examination for breast cancer, counselling was simply not an option for Serena. So she did what working women and working mothers do when things get unexpectedly tough. She just showed up. She got on with it. She sucked up her personal feelings and she met her commitments. Yes, she was tired. I could hear that in her voice, and you will too. I can't imagine what the previous couple of days must have been like for her. And yeah, she was distracted as well. Serena did this interview over the phone from a hotel room in New York, and you can hear her 1-year-old daughter Olympia in the background. But she was also warm and funny and engaged, and I found myself feeling oddly protective of one of the greatest athletes of all time, because Serena Williams has had the toughest year of her life professionally and physically and emotionally. Here's Serena.
Hello?
Hey, Serena, it's Mia Friedman. How you doing?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm very well. We're talking to you in the week after the US Open. You've had a hell of a week. How are you doing?
Girl. I'm okay. I'm not great, but I'm doing the best that I can and trying to move forward. But most of all, spending time with Olympia, as you can hear in the background. And we are... Things matter, but you realize the most important things that really matter.
What was the first thing you wanted to do when you got off the court? Like, what's your safe place and who's your safe place?
Besides cry, I don't know. It was interesting. I got in the car and Olympia was in the car and it was so weird. She started giving me kisses. She never gives me kisses. She don't even know how to get kisses. She don't even know how to get kisses, and she just grabbed me and started giving me kisses. And I was like, oh, this little baby is so smart. Yeah. So that's it's just hard to be too down when you have...
Yeah. It's perspective, isn't it?
When you have someone to take care of. Yeah. I have to take care of this person, and I have to do this type of stuff. So it just... exactly. It puts everything in perspective.
You're working with Berlei after your mum bought you a whole bunch of their bras. And there's an Australian connection in the latest campaign. I Touch Myself by Chrissy Amphlett. Tell me about why you wanted to be involved in this campaign.
Well, I'm really passionate about women and women projects, and I'm really passionate about women's health and just speaking up for women, as you know very well. And I feel like Chrissy Ampflett's song and what she wanted to do with the song and what she did in 2014, I don't know if you knew, that the project that she was a part of was also just about speaking about the awareness and the importance of early detection of breast cancer and how it is so important, how that is, early detection really can literally save your life. I mean, literally save your life. And so I just thought, wow, this was something I wanted to get involved in because it was a great cause. And I wanted to be able to continue to champion her message and that she wanted to do. And I had a chance also to talk to her husband a couple of times, and I actually met him as well. And, I just felt like sometimes you have to be able to say a message loud and clear and in order to get it through. And the way that Berlei wanted to do the ad was super intimate and super loud, and it would really create a lot of attention, but for a good cause.
And you sing as well. Is there anything you can't do, Serena?
Well, I don't think I am the world's greatest singer, but, I was excited to get through it.
I love myself. I want you to love me. When I feel down, I want you above me. I search myself. I want you to find me. I forget myself. I want you to remind me.
Serena found out she was pregnant in late 2016, and her pregnancy was easy. She didn't have morning sickness, and she even competed in the Australian Open, where she beat her sister Venus and won yet another Grand Slam. But in September 2017, the birth of her daughter Olympia and its aftermath were a disaster, and Serena Williams very nearly died. Yes, one of the most famous women in the world, with all the money in the world and with the best medical care on the planet, proved yet again that not every birth goes according to plan. And not only that, the well-being of the baby or the mother should never, ever be taken for granted. The day after Olympia was born, through emergency C-section, Serena began to feel out of breath. And it was a feeling she recognised in the most terrifying way. She'd suffered a pulmonary embolism in 2011, which is a clot in her lungs, and she feared this might be a repeat of that condition, which can be fatal if it's not treated quickly. Despite this being a highly unusual and rare situation for a new mother and nobody else picking it up, Serena overruled them. She knew her body and she knew something was seriously wrong. So she demanded a CT scan for her lungs, and it saved her life because the scan showed blood clots. She was right. The situation was, in fact, life-threatening. Something that happens when you have clots in your lungs is that it makes you cough. And that coughing caused Serena's C-section wound to burst. What followed was a series of 5 critical surgeries. In one of them, her doctors found another large blood clot in her abdomen. By the time she was finally released from hospital, Serena was incredibly weak, struggling to breastfeed, and totally bedridden. Her mother moved into the house with Serena, and her husband Alexis, for many weeks, had to lift her out of bed every morning. Incredibly, all of this was only 12 months ago. The fact she is now playing and almost winning Grand Slams at the most elite level of her sport against players nearly half her age is extraordinary. It's hard to think of a comeback like it in any sport.
In terms of early detection, it's interesting what you say and the ad. You've had the experience, you breastfed Olympia for 8 months, and that made your comeback slower, but you really experienced that difference in your breasts from being, part of body image and part of your sexuality to being this life-sustaining force. What was that like for you?
It was just different. I never expected it, and it kind of just all happened to be this big force, and I embraced it, and I wanted to be a part of it and do everything that I could with several different topics. And it honestly just really was able to work out for me.
With, having your body as the tool of your work, and then having it kind of when you're pregnant and then when you give birth and when you breastfeed, how was it relinquishing that sense of control? Because you've always had such extraordinary mastery over your body. That's what your whole career's been based on.
It's hard, as you know. One thing I've learned that I can't control pretty much anything when it came to that part of my life and the pregnancy and stuff like that, because it was more or less just the baby kind of takes over everything, and you're just this amazing vessel, and you are just a part of the process, so to say, I think is the best way I can describe it, right?
Yeah.
But it was, for me, I was always having control of my body and always knowing and telling my body what to do. It was a completely different experience for me.
Did you fight it?
No, I actually had a really good, I had a really good pregnancy, and it was pretty easy. So I was super, super fortunate.
When I was pregnant with my first child, I was the editor-in-chief of Cosmopolitan here in Australia, and I went into my boss and I said, I'll only need a couple of weeks maternity leave because,
Oh my gosh,
how hard can it be? I'll come straight back, because I had no idea what it was going to be like on the other side.
No.
What did you think it was going to be like, and how has it surprised you?
Well, I don't know. I don't know. I definitely didn't think it was going to be easy, obviously. But I have to say I wasn't like you. I was more or less like a couple of months kind of person, and I felt like also was thinking different about my body. As you see, especially in social media, you see so many women come back looking amazing after a day.
Yeah.
And so that was kind of more of my struggles. So
Yeah.
it was, I think we all as women deal with different ones. And I think it's so fun to kind of talk about it and just kind of see what everyone else dealt with and everyone else thought. And it's so interesting how at some point we all have different feelings and different thoughts, but they're all kind of one of the same.
Yeah.
But yeah, so that was kind of more or less my thought process. And I was thinking, I'd come back and I'd be playing tennis in January. And of course, it was a couple months. I had a baby in February, but I was nowhere near a January finish. So it was interesting, to say the least. We both were in it.
The other thing that shocked me about being a mum is the love. And I know that sounds crazy, but I mean, I knew I'd love my baby, but I didn't realize how much it would sort of interfere with my ambition for a long time. Did you find that hunger to win and caring so much about tennis, that it was impacted in that way as well?
I am almost ashamed to say it hasn't been impacted, that part of my life. But the love that I felt was incredible. Sometimes I feel bad about having to go to work, and it's really difficult for me to go. And it's like, I almost just want to cancel and say I don't want to practice. But I'm in a unique position where I kind of do my schedule. I kind of decide when I can work, and I'm really fortunate with that. And a lot of women don't have that. But that has been the most surprising for me, is the love. Like, I never expected I could love something or someone that much.
When Serena left tennis to give birth in April 2017, she was ranked number 1 in the world. So when she returned after 8 months of maternity leave, she came back with a lot to prove to herself. Serena's first Grand Slam match was at the French Open in June, where she wore the controversial catsuit that ended up being banned despite the fact that she'd worn it to help prevent the blood clots that had very nearly killed her just a few months earlier. In July, she entered the Wimbledon Championships and she made it to the finals, but lost against German player Angelique Kerber. Women all over the world, and particularly mothers, rallied around Serena's remarkable run at Wimbledon, which she says has helped carry her through the low moments. She wrote on Instagram, "I dedicated that to all the mums out there who've been through a lot. Some days I cry, I'm really sad, I've had meltdowns, it's been a really tough 11 months. If I can do it, you guys can do it too." Serena was well on the road to her next tournament, the US Open, but it was around this time that she shared on Instagram that she'd been suffering from what she called postpartum emotions.
I really felt for you so much when you wrote that post about postpartum feelings, and I'm so glad you called them postpartum feelings, because postpartum depression is one thing, but no one's ever spoken in the public eye before about all the complexity of how you feel.
Yeah, and I felt like it was really important to talk about, because a lot of people feel like the word depression is bad, and just because you're going through things doesn't necessarily mean it's depression at the same time. So I felt like it was important to say something that a lot of people could relate to and understand. And that, and kind of just like the Berlei campaign, I touched myself. It's really something that so many women can relate to and so many women can understand. And hey, it might not be the most comfortable thing to talk about. Hey, you have to feel yourself every once a year or once a month. A lot of people might feel uncomfortable talking about that, but it's those uncomfortable situations that we really need to embrace better and help each other out more, because it can literally save lives.
When I was researching Serena, I fell down a bit of a rabbit hole about how she met her husband. He's the co-founder of Reddit. His name is Alexis Ohanian. And one thing I discovered about them is that they met through an Australian connection.
We actually met through just random circumstance. I happened to be at a conference in Rome, an internet conference. She was playing a tournament there. Sure. And I had a little too much to drink the night before, as is the thing. Red wine flows nicely in Italy. And I overslept, and I missed breakfast. And I'm a fiend for coffee. And the nice folks at the hotel said, if you really need some coffee, sir, just go sit outside. And I just grabbed the table, opened my laptop, and then this Australian guy, turned out to be her assistant, is like, I take off my headphones. And he says, there's a rat near your table, you should move. And I told him, thank you, but I'm from Brooklyn, I see rats all the time, it's really not a big deal. Yeah, it's true.
So that was just to get you to move along?
I later learned they were just trying to get rid of me. They were planning on using that table for the rest of their team, but Serena turned around and was like, wait, you're not afraid of rats? And I said no, and she asked if I was there at the tech conference, and I said yes, and she asked me who I was there to see speak, and I said I was speaking, and then she asked what I did, and I said, I started this company called Reddit, and I do investing, and she said, Reddit, never heard of it. And at the time, I'd like to think she had a hidden agenda, but she assures me that it was just purely professional. She was just interested in taking my numbers so that she could ask me questions about tech and some of the businesses she was interested in. And one thing led to another, and she had made what I would call an LA invite for me to come see her play in France. And I didn't know this was a thing, but she'd made me the invite with no intention of actually taking me up on it. This is the LA invite.
She's just sort of like, you should come see me in Paris. Yes. I'm playing at the French Open. Come.
With no intention of actually me taking her up on it or it even being a sincere invitation at all.
So what
not from LA.
What happens when you show up?
Well, I figured, look, I'm an entrepreneur, and you have to sort of default to yes in situations and just trust your instincts and just know what you want and do it. And I figured worst case scenario, if she blows me off for the weekend, I have a great story.
He said you invited him to come watch you in the French Open, and he said it was something called an LA date.
It was like, it's something you say in passing, like, oh, we should go to the moon. You don't really mean let's go to the moon, So, no intentions of going to the moon. So that's kind of how that was said. And I guess he took it upon itself to be real, and thank goodness.
And when you made that invitation, did it surprise you when he actually turned up in Paris?
Yeah, because I was like, wait, what? This guy is really here. This guy is nuts. But we literally have a good laugh about it all the time. And it's really a fun story, Like, I just feel like it's a really good story that we can laugh about for years and years and years.
And he said that you went past a zoo and you were looking at the leopards, and the moment that you guys really connected was over a bunny that was dead.
No, yeah, because they had fed it to this leopard, and I'm like, I hate that. I hate seeing animals in pain. It really bothers me. So I was mortified, and I was I was like, oh, this is the worst thing. And anyway, that's kind of odd, but that's kind of how we kind of bonded.
He, of course, is a self-described nerdy guy, the founder of Reddit. And you said you always thought that you would probably marry a black guy?
Yeah, just and we always joke about this too. It's just definitely not a normal, not the average person I would date. But I feel like maybe I had to get out of my wheelhouse or just learn. You never know what this planned or what's in your plan, you know? And I don't know. It's just really, I find it all really, really, really crazy and interesting.
You were actually pregnant. There's a lot of Australian connections in your life because you actually found out that you were pregnant with Olympia just a few days before the Australian Open.
Mm-hmm.
Did you play differently?
Yeah, I did play differently when I found out. I was a lot more aggressive, and I just played like I had nothing to lose because I really didn't. I felt like, wow, no matter what happens, I'm going to be winning. I'm having a kid. And that's kind of how I played.
Did Venus know? Because you were playing Venus. Had you told her?
Yes. I told her, of course, and she knew.
Did she go easy on you?
I don't know. I hope not. I think it was a very difficult position for her to be in. You know, if you know your really close friend is going through something and you have to play him, and it's just it just really is an uncomfortable position for her to be in.
Supporting women is something that you've really made your mission with this Berlei campaign and with the way that you lifted up Naomi Osaka in that ceremony at the end, and you were so gracious towards her. What's the role of women in your life, you know, as fellow competitors? You've got a lot of sisters, as friends.
Yeah, for me, I feel like we should lift each other up and support each other and not tear each other down. And that's something I've always tried to do. I think is, you know, I've always tried to support us and lift each other up and fight for equal prize money and fight for equal playing time and fight for just all sorts of equality. And, you know, I just feel like it's one thing to fight for it and then not do it. So I really feel like it's just me. I'm not doing something that I'm like kind of forcefully doing and trying to be this person. You know what I mean? Like it's just all super, 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 super natural. Like, oh my God, let me help this girl out, even though I feel like crap. You know, let's figure this out.
Being the parent of a 1-year-old means that you don't get a lot of time to yourself. I mean, 1-year-olds don't care what you do, that you're an amazing athlete, that you've got a headache or a hangover. They want your whole focus all the time. But as a mother, we have other parts of our lives, don't we?
Yeah, right. A mother and dads do. And
yeah.
We somehow tend to always focus on our kids, which is why we're moms, you know. But that's absolutely not a bad thing. It's really a wonderful thing. But I think it's important to figure out a balance. And I am definitely still trying to figure out that balance. I haven't found it yet. I mean, maybe you have.
No.
I could always maybe get some tips from you later, but it's hard. It really is.
Thanks for listening to No Filter, and thank you to Serena Williams for taking the time out to speak to us during her week from hell. If you want to check out Berlei's amazing breast cancer campaign, and if you want to see the full ad, head to berlei.com.au. We'll also link to it in our show notes. And buy a bra so you can help support the Australian Breast Cancer Network. If you want something else to listen to, why not check out our flagship podcast, Mamma Mia Out Loud. Every Wednesday and Friday, Holly Wainwright, me, and Jessie Stevens pop into your ears to discuss what women are talking about this week, from pop culture through to politics and even pelvic floors. Subscribe in your podcast app now. This show was produced by Eliza Ratliff. I'm Mia Friedman, and I will see you on mamamia.com.au.